Oh, it says live now.
Yep, we are now live.
So, Katie, do you want to ask for the chair?
Yes, thank you. So good evening, everybody, and welcome to this evening's Audit Committee meeting. We've received an apology from the chair, Councillor Murtagh, so in his absence, we'll need to elect for somebody else to act as chair for this meeting only. So can I ask for any nominations, please?
Can I nominate Councillor Yvonne Johnson, please?
And can I second that, please?
Thank you very much. Okay, so Councillor Johnson, if you're happy to take the chair, please.
Thank you very much. Thank you. And I think everyone's names are up, so I don't think many members of the public come in and watch this, but we're all here. So obviously we've taken Tim's apologies, Tim Murtagh's, and we've got the risk register, which is in private, should anyone want to ask any questions at the end. I was asked, our auditor from Deloitte is quite willing to come along this evening, so he's going to come along at 7:15. So if anyone's got any questions, please feel free to ask him then. I thought there's no point making him sit through the whole thing, so I'm sure Louisa or Mike will tell us when he arrives. Okay, any declarations of interest? No, as I said, we've got the matters in private, the risk register. Are the minutes of the 18th a true and correct record? Yes, agreed, thank you. We know that the Treasury management was replaced in the week, so the papers were replaced. I'm sure everybody saw that. Okay, over to you, Louisa.
Thank you, Councillor Johnson. So the first item on the agenda is the Treasury Management Q3 update. So this is the report which sets out the investments and borrowing for the quarter to the 31st of December, and attached as an appendix is the Treasury Management Strategy, which is going to full council for approval next week, but open for any questions on the report. There's no significant items to note within it. So over to the committee for any questions.
Thank you. Would anyone like to ask officers any questions, or does anyone want anything clarified?
I have one question that I'd like to just quickly clarify. It's more just a general request or observation. I think it's on page 38, we do some work with the West London Waste Authority, and we gain some fundage out of that. Is there any way of gaining a bit more out of them, obviously with the funds of things, or do we think we've got the best price that we're charging for them, we can't get any more out of them?
I will take that one back to the Treasury Committee, the Treasury team, sorry, and ask them when the next renewal is. I think the contract is for a set number of years, but the next renewal, whenever that's due, then certainly something we can look at.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Anything else? No? I will just note that report then. Thank you very much, Louisa. And that brings us on to the next item, which is item 7, Financial Management Code. And that's you again, Louisa. Over to you. You want to quickly introduce that?
Thanks, Councillor Johnson. This one is the self-assessment of the Financial Management Code. So last year we brought a report to Audit Committee which detailed what the Financial Management Code was and some of the standards within it. This time around we've done a self-assessment, and the appendix, which is on page 89 of your pack, details out the Council's self-assessment. So that includes details of what the standards are, an assessment of the current position for the Council, and then identifies any areas for improvement, which we'll continue to monitor over the next, as we move on. So any questions, please?
Are there any questions for anyone on this? No? Well, we'll note that. Thank you, Louisa. Has the auditor turned up yet by any chance? I thought we could maybe... Oh, he has. Yes. Hello. Good evening. Welcome. Perhaps I could start off by asking you when you're likely to sign us off, when we're going to get a clean bill of health. Do we know if it's going to be soon?
So the situation, obviously we reported to this committee in November on our progress. we then made good progress on clearing points that were remaining to the beginning of January. However, unfortunately, the senior audit manager on the audit left the firm. And so we had a resourcing issue over the last couple of months. I've now identified a replacement. And so I'm anticipating in the next month that we should be able to move towards completion and signing. So I'm hopeful that by the end of March, we ought to be in that position. But I do need to just confirm with the individual that I have as a replacement on timings and just make sure that that's fine. But yeah, I think that should be achievable based on what's left to do.
Thank you. And has lockdown just been very difficult?
Well, it's been a hugely challenging period. And it's not just the impact. So COVID has had a very significant impact, and sickness in recent months has been significant. Over 2 years, the disruption that it's caused, and actually as an authority, you're in many ways further ahead than some. There are still 1819 and 1920 audits that are in progress in the country at other authorities. And so there is an element of need, in the circumstances where resources are short, auditors, some auditors have left the sector, and there's a capacity issue nationally, together with the disruption of COVID, the increase in work as a result of COVID, and therefore recent sickness levels, etc. That all sort of comes together. That's made it a very difficult time. Which also is part of the reason it continues to be difficult to predict timing, but it does feel like the audit file is relatively close to completion. So I can't confirm with certainty that it will be the end of March, but I'm hopeful.
Thank you very much. Would any other members of the committee like to ask any questions or make a comment in any way? No? Oh, well, doesn't look like it. Well, thank you very much. And I asked you to come on early because I didn't want you to hang around. So you're very welcome to go if you want to. Thank you very much, then. Right, good evening. Bye. Thank you. Okay, then that brings us on to item 8, accounting policies. And I think that's you again, Louisa.
Thank you, Councillor Johnson. Yeah, this one's the accounting policies for 2021-22. So this sets out the policies which we intend to use for the statement of accounts for this financial year. There are no significant changes at present in comparison to the 2021 accounts. However, I would draw your attention to section 4 of the report, which includes future changes. Earlier in February, SIPFA have released an emergency proposal on changes to the code of practice, which could potentially impact this year. We're not sure whether or not that will be the case at the moment. So at the moment, we're assuming it will be as is and have reported those policies to you. However, that consultation will close on the 9th of March, and we'll have a little bit more information after that as to whether or not they are making any changes to the code of practice, which we obviously follow. And pending any decisions on that, we will update the accounting policies accordingly and report back to the committee with the statement of accounts if there have been any changes to that. But at the moment, we're not anticipating that there will be any significant changes as to those that we've presented this evening.
Thank you very much. Any questions on this at all? No? Oh, well, thank you. We'll note that. Thank you very much. And then I think that the next item is item 9, the third quarter. And that's Mike, over to you.
Thanks, Councillor Johnson. So this is my normal update. Probably referring on the audit side to paragraph 4.5, there were 3 reports finalised during the period, all of which were reasonable assurance. We've had quite a few of the reports move to draft, and we're ahead of schedule for Q3, so on target to complete all the reports and finalise everything hopefully for the next committee. On the follow-ups, you'll see, I think a number of these came to you in the previous report. the deadlines I think that were then set were the kind of March, April. So we'll get a full update on those and bring back to you. Just to note, the health and safety recommendations are being followed up through two of the audit reports that we're currently doing. On the counter fraud side, some fairly good work. Pleased with. We've got actual and notional savings of around 800k across the proactive and reactive work. I've provided updates on the NFI work and enhanced vetting. Looking at the targets, we were slightly behind. I think we set ourselves up for a normal year, and obviously we had a slightly slower start due to the kind of lockdowns and restrictions that were there. But I'm really pleased with the team and the outcomes. I think we're really hitting the numbers in terms of values, but not achieved every single target. But I think doing pretty well on the outturn. Any questions?
Yes, I just wondered on the payments cards, what's been the hold up on children's? It says children's not.
So so essentially, they haven't actually implemented them yet. It's I think there was initially some discussions with the provider around stuff that I ended up getting involved in around the kind of money laundering requirements. So that delayed stuff for a period of time. So it's not like they're pushing back on the audit; it just hasn't implemented the new system yet. So there's not much value looking at it. We have said we'll look at the processes before they go live, and then we'll do the audit once it's in. But that's hopefully in for next year.
Thank you. Anyone else questions on this?
I've got a quick one,
Mick.
Councillor Johnson. Thank you. Yeah, it's just literally going back to 4.4, item 10, the COVID payments one, which was advisory. I just want to check, is everything all okay and above board? Because obviously there's been quite a bit of fraud commentary in the national press about things. And then there was also, I think we discussed this before, under place with the health and safety of the temporary accommodation where there's limited assurance. Are we concerned still about the issues there, or are we thinking that things are going through? And just if you can clarify what a couple of the issues were for the panel, that would be helpful.
So taking the COVID payments first, so we've been providing advice and support all the way through. I think we reported at the end of last year in terms of our involvement in terms of kind of vetting and verifying some of the payments and preventing stuff. With the speed and way that things were implemented, there was always going to be the sort of fraud risks that you've read about. Councils had to operate, and I think if it was kind of down to me, we'd probably not paid anybody because you can always find a reason to pay to fail people. But the reality is you kind of have to set the bar somewhere. There are always going to be some fairly serious fraudsters, but I think we kind of raised the bar in terms of setting out the processes, getting the fraud team involved in some of the validations. So I'm not going to say there's not going to be any fraud, but we try to minimise that as much as possible and set the bar whilst getting the payments out as quickly as we possibly could.
So that sounds like you've done the good work on that front. Brilliant. That's good assurance. And then on the health and safety in the TA?
And so on the health and safety, we did mention this one last time. So essentially, it's kind of validating that the landlords have done what they need to. We will follow that up, and we will report back to committee if things aren't being implemented at the speed that we would like.
Great, thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? Any questions on that? Okay, so we'll note the third quarter. That brings us on to 10, the draft internal audit plan, and that's you again, Mike.
Thank you. So you'll be familiar with my speech in terms of the process. So we've built a 5-year plan, which you'll see at the strategy, which I use as a kind of basis for conversations as much as anything, and a trigger. We meet with all the kind of key stakeholders, exec directors, and have those discussions, and that informs kind of key risk areas and the stuff that's keeping people awake at night. And then there's some stuff that we just do because we haven't done it for a while. And we also do things like benchmarking through our PwC team, the London Audit Group, which I'm involved with, and obviously I have similar conversations with Hounslow, so I kind of share concerns from both. So that helps me kind of identify key risk areas for coverage. So you'll see most of the suggested plan for next year's coverage is set out on pages. Sorry, trying to get there with the mouse. On pages 150 to 152. So that's the areas that we'll basically be looking at as part of next year's work, which we'll report back to you on the way forward. And as I say, just for kind of a reference point, we also include the coverage over the last 3 years, what we're going to do this year, next year, and then we've got the kind of forecast, which is the kind of 4 years back. But we keep it agile, and we'll have those conversations and bring you a refreshed plan back next year, as always. So any questions on the plan, please?
No, it was good to see the actual what you've done over the years. That I quite like that, because you said you'd put that back in. Tommy, go ahead.
Thank you. Thanks for that, Mike. I'm just looking at page 154 of the 5-year strategic plan. I'm looking at data protection, data breaches. It's marked as an audit that we're meant to have done this year. I don't see that in this year's plan, and I can't see where it's perhaps moved to, if it needed to move off for any reason. Just wondered whether the strategic plan needs a bit of updating before we approve fully.
That tick must have ended up in the last place, because it was done last year
in 2021.
Yeah, that must just be that tick's in the wrong box. So it should have been the year before. Sorry.
It's okay. Just as just in terms of risk assessment, you're comfortable. It doesn't need any more urgency to review. I can't recall what the assurance was previously, but
I think we had a fairly good level of assurance on that one, from what I recall. And we've got it's an important area, so we have got that again. We have got that forecast for next year. So we do keep tabs on it. I think
that's not showing for next year, I don't think.
Sorry, we've got the data protection line there above it.
For 23-24.
Yeah, so next year, the year after.
Yeah.
So
as you say, it's quite an important area, and every organisation is quite vulnerable. I just wonder whether that's warrants revisiting more than once every 5 or once every 4 years, as it will be here.
I'll have a look at it. Obviously, that's got missed because of that. I'll have a look at that and consider that, and see if there's something we should be doing. But I'll have a look at the assurance levels on both those reports. It has been fairly good in the past.
You could come back to us outside the meeting. Just send us all an email after you've checked it. Yeah,
thank you.
Right. Cool. Thank you, Tommy. That's helpful, because obviously that tick was in the wrong section. Anything else from anybody? No, we'll note and agree that then. Thank you. And then that brings us on to the last item 11, the risk management performance report. Does anybody want to ask anything? I was saying it's quite interesting, because you can see why things are happening, but does anybody want to ask anything? We could go into private if necessary. I'm not sure that anyone is actually listening. Katie, is there any members of the public online?
I can't see that at the moment.
No, I can't see anybody.
If we did want to discuss it, we would have to go offline. Anyway.
So was there anybody want to ask anything? Go on, Mick.
I've got a question, but we don't need to go offline, because I'm not going to go into cold papers or anything. It was actually partly, I could have raised that, I suppose, in the minutes. At the previous meeting, when we were looking at the strategic risks, I've seen, for example, some of the ones that have dropped out. I think this is right. But I raised the thing about the chief executive and senior management. And asked, I mean, it's noted in the minutes itself. Obviously, the chief executive, we've got an interim head of paid service at the moment, but there's been a few other changes at the top level. Is that something that we need to monitor a bit more deeply now? Are there any concerns, or has that actually been followed up from the last meeting? And actually, we're quite sure, even though, so for example, I know that the head of comms has gone recently, obviously for personal reasons, but also the head of the cabinet office has gone. We've still got a gap in planning. We've got, I think, the director of place, I think there is an issue as well. I'm just wondering about whether there's a concern that we've had a bit too much churn at the top level.
So I had a conversation with various people about that. It's something that we're very alert to and can continue to consider. I wouldn't say there's no kind of unreplaceable person, and we've had kind of handovers and various things and interims and bits and pieces. So I think it was kind of not for the strategic risk register at the moment, but something that you're absolutely right, and we continue to monitor, and we're doing a full review again. So we'll pick up that and just see if there's anything that we need to keep track of, and that we feel is kind of emerging. I mean, you're right. It is always a risk, but there's been kind of handovers and bits and pieces. So it's probably kind of bubbling under the surface, but at the moment doesn't need to be on the strategic risk register.
Well, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for pointing that out. Is there anything anybody else would like to ask? No? Well, thank you very much. Now, before we finish, can I just put on record our thanks to Tim Murter over the past 4 years when he's chaired this meeting, and it's not perhaps everybody's cup of tea, but he's worked hard on this. And so can we thank him for his work over the past 4 years and wish him all the best in the future? I'm sure we can all agree that. Thank you very much.
Agree.
Right, thank you, and good evening. Right, thank you. Bye.
Well, thanks very much.